Again, well, warm welcome everyone, and thank you for joining the DHL Innovation Plug-in session. Thank you for joining us. We'll wait for 1 more minute. In the meantime, while waiting, I'd like to introduce that today's sessions will be about mobile robots. That's why the title, I like to move it, move it. Mobile robots have the capability to move around in their environment, and they are not fixed on one physical location. So we'll talk about the different types and the use cases and what considerations we will take if you're thinking of implementing it in your operations. For those who just joined in, we'd like to ask you to mute your Zoom mics, and all speakers will be on video, but for those who are attending, video is optional. And we'll be using menti.com a lot, so so that we can ask questions, and also you can ask questions to us. Feel free to type in your questions at any time on the chat window, which is right below on the screen, and then we will also try to get them by the end of this session. To kickstart, while we're waiting for others to join, let's go to Menti on your mobile phones or launch on your web browser and enter the code 460625. That's menti.com and enter 460625. And we'd like to hear from you. We'd like to know which country are you based in at the moment. The beauty about this session is that we don't have to fly in our guests. They are located in Singapore, and we have Julian located in Germany, and also Johnny located in Hong Kong. And I'm located here as well in Singapore, in my home office. So, Julian, where are you at the moment in Germany?
Hi, Celeste. Thanks for having me. I'm right now actually in Cologne in my flat. Over here at 7 a.m. in the morning. So I take this call from home and right after move into the office because our innovation center has already opened its doors again since last Monday. So yeah, we have the opportunity to go there again.
Fantastic. Good to have you here, Julian.
Thanks for having me.
And hello to our colleagues or our customers from Australia, from Singapore, and from Malaysia. And hopefully we'll have more people joining in as we go along this session. Hello as well, Willkommen, Germany. So you are also having your our customers and colleagues from Germany. Fantastic. And for our customers and colleagues from Australia, welcome to today's sessions. For those who just joined in, the DHL Innovation Session is a series of webinars, and we talk about the different trends or innovation topics. They could be IoT. We also have robotics for today. Analytics will be up and coming, and we will have a special edition of the Fireside Chat that's in June, and we'll talk about the role of innovation. For the next question, we'd like to hear from you. Which sector are you from? Are you from life sciences and healthcare, from technology, energy engineering and manufacturing? Are you from automobility maybe, or the retail, fashion, and customer sector? Okay, we're seeing that some people are from other sectors that we have not covered, and we also have some people coming from the life sciences and healthcare. Fantastic. We also have some representatives from automobility sector. That's great. We'll have very, very interesting discussions later on the application of mobile robots. And we'll be seeing some more sectors later on being represented in this discussion. I actually see some of you as well representing engineering and manufacturing. So that's great participation from you guys, and tech. Great. Just enter the code 460625 for those who just joined in menti.com, and you can still answer these questions as we go along the way. All right, so moving on to the next question. Have you encountered any of these robots that you're seeing right now? Have you seen, or perhaps you own a cleaning robot, uh, or you've seen in one of the warehouses the assisted picking robot, the last mile delivery? Have you had any delivery at the moment using those mobile robots or the mobile manipulator? Chuan, what kind of robots are we actually featuring in our innovation center in APEC?
So we have a, excuse me, we have a collaborative robot arm, Cobot for short, in our center. That's Sawyer by Rethink Robotics. We have mobile, an actual AMR, autonomous mobile robot by uh, Mobile Industries, sorry, MIR. I forgot the acronym. Oh no. And we have another by Thouser, another robot called Thouser by Duke. It's a follow me robot. Basically, it's a cart that you don't need to push manually. It just follows you around. Those are our main few for now.
Fantastic. For those who have not visited the Asia Pacific Innovation Center, we'll be happy to showcase you those type of mobile robots in our Innovation Center. Julian is also representing the European Innovation Center. So in case you are in Germany, feel free to contact us and we will connect you to Julian, and so that you can visit and see those mobile robots as well and their features. Let's pause from here. I'd like to introduce our panelists. I've been talking to you guys earlier. I was just waiting for some of the people to join in as well. I think we have a good participation at the moment. So let's move on and introduce our speakers. We have Chuan, our very own innovation manager and subject matter experts for robotics and automation at the Asia Pacific Innovation Center. We have Julian, the project manager, Robotics Accelerator program at the Trend Research located in Germany, and looking at the European application of those mobile robots. And we have, of course, Johnny. Johnny, thank you for joining us. He's from High Robotics, Vice President of International Sales. We're very interested to hear more about High Robotics and the technology that you are exploring right now. Hi, Johnny. Welcome to our DHL Innovation Plug-in session.
Thank you, Sylvester, for having me for this great event.
Thank you. All right, let's start off, Chuan. You know, you even forgot the abbreviation for MIR, but let's straighten the abbreviation first of all and talk about AGVs, AMR. I get really confused about this abbreviation and its meaning. Is it actually the same or different? And when we talk about mobile robots, is that anything that moves indoor or outdoor?
So with regards to your question first, indoor, outdoor, it can be both, very honestly, although a lot of applications now are focused on indoor applications or use cases. So AGVs, AMRs, AGV stands for Automated Guided Vehicles, AMR stand for Autonomous Mobile Robots. Very honestly, the terms today are used very loosely, interrelated, but they are, at the core fundamentals, there are two basic differences. One is how these robots navigate, and two is how they engage an obstacle. So for AGVs, they typically navigate using physical navigation, for example, wires in the ground or painted strips. So they follow fixed routes. For AMRs, these robots basically navigate through an onboard map. So they are not stuck to the routes. They basically can move anywhere that is allowed in the system. So with that, the second key difference I mentioned was obstacle engaging. So one is for AGVs, because of the fixed routes, they cannot actively avoid an obstacle. So when they meet an obstacle, they have to stop, and someone basically needs to remove the obstacle from the path before the AGV can continue. On the other hand, for AMRs, because they are capable of active obstacle avoidance, they can either go around or they can choose a totally different route to navigate to their destination. So those are the key differences.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you for letting me understand the difference between those two. Now, I would like to make it more tangible. Could you give us some use cases for mobile robots in the supply chain? And what have we actually tried in DHL?
There are plenty of use cases in supply chain. You have point-to-point movements like indoor, outdoor. You have goods to person. For goods to person, we have implemented, as of last year, we have implemented a system in Japan for one of our tech customers. Basically, a goods to person system uses mobile robots to bring shelves to a picking or packing station. So the people don't have to actually walk and find the picking location. So this allows a smaller group of pickers to achieve a higher throughput, just without adding more manpower. In terms of point-to-point movement, we have deployed in our express hub, in Hong Kong and Singapore, a few mobile robots to move things from one point to the other, whether is it through a customs clearance process or for inspections, or simply, for example, from the air side to the land side. So this basically eliminates the requirement for a person to physically move these items, which are usually big or bulky.
Oh, fantastic. Now, Julian, I've introduced you as the one looking at the application of these mobile robots in the European Union or in Europe. Now, do you see a different application of those mobile robots as opposed to what Chuan has just explained?
Hi again. And no, I don't think that there's necessarily a difference. I would just say that maybe things started a bit earlier over here. And we have had our first deployed autonomous mobile robots in 2016, 2017. By that time, it was the fetch robots, which we already now upgraded a bit. So they now move carts and no fixed containers on top anymore. But yeah, since then the development has going through the same evolvement as Chuan describes for APEC, right? So also over here we deploy robots for point-to-point handling. This is usually the, let's say, easiest use case because you don't necessarily need to integrate the robots. And then we also have more elaborate use cases, as for example, assisted order picking. But as soon as it comes to order picking, you obviously need to connect your robotics fleet to your warehouse management system, which then also requires a large IT effort and usually means that you deploy more robots. Other than that, also the robot John mentioned from Mobile Industrial Robots, we have a couple of those deployed over here in Europe as well. A lot of them in the Benelux area, but also in Germany. And those can, for example, attack carts and dock autonomously to those carts. And then, in those carts, you can imagine that you can place small orders or goods. And then also we now slowly but surely see more deployed robots for transport of pallets. So larger robots, which we call automated pallet jacks, which then can move entire pallets, which are much heavier than sort of just smaller orders.
And which particular sector have applied these mobile robots and the use cases that you've mentioned?
Yeah, I think we have various sectors. So obviously the technology sector is very tech savvy, right? So with them, it's rather easy to get these things started. But also, for example, assisted order picking robots, we have deployed with life science and healthcare customers, a lot of e-com customers. So also the system Chuan mentioned, the goods to person system, we have deployed with an e-commerce customer also in the Benelux. But then also automotive, for example, has deployed robots. And the fetch example I brought up earlier, this is with the engineering and manufacturing customer. So I would say that the landscape is very broad, and mobile robots are applicable to all sectors.
Fantastic. Thank you, Julian. That gives me a bit more understanding on the relevancy of those mobile robots. Now, let's turn to Johnny. Johnny, I understand that your Hi Robotics are actually applied in DHL. So tell me more about it.
Yeah, thanks, Celeste. In Asian Pacific region, there are several ongoing projects has been equipped with our high-tech ACRs. And ACR means autonomous case handling robotic system. And here are two examples with SFDSC. So Hi Robotics is existing SFDSC China on a fashion apparel customer. And high-tech ACRs bring the totes from the shelving to the station, which increase the inbound efficiency by 20 times and the outbound efficiency by 3.5 times. and the storage density by 1.8 times, and then further reduce the human error to almost zero. Also, there's another high-peak ACR operation with a tech customer of SFDSC Hong Kong for their spare parts warehouse. And then the pain points for this projects before that's manual operation and high cost. And
okay, Jenny, just hold on a second for me, please, because
Sure.
my slide is actually lagging. You're talking about the use case now in the tech sector. So fantastic. This is in Hong Kong, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, this is one in China, in Shanghai.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, right. So this one, as I mentioned, the inbound efficiency and outbound efficiency increased a lot by equipped with our high-peak ACRs and also the storage density. And the beauty for this one, another beauty for this this project is from deployment to go live in just in a month. This is our first use case.
Okay, the second one, which is what is being shown now in the slide, is the spare parts warehouse.
Yes, yes. This is another tech customer, DHL Hong Kong is serving right now. And for this project, obviously the pain points is still manual operation. And also another special thing is high goods carrying manually. So this is really not a good thing for the operation. So actually, for after Hong Kong DHL equipped with our ACR system, and we can take 5 totes at a time, so efficiency increased. And also we can use the Excel API interface, so it's a faster system go live. And optimize the manual operation, so no need to carry heavy goods for the operators. And again, 1 week deployment, 3 weeks testing, 1 month go live.
Okay, yep. Thank you, Johnny. Now, it's a very interesting thing. I picked up the abbreviation ACR. You've again introduced another terminology for me. We've just discussed AGV, AMR, and now you have ACR. So what is the difference between ACR and what we've talked about with the AMR? Yeah.
That's a great question. So typically AMR refers to the mobile robot moves the shelvings around, but our high-peak robotic system is transferring between 5 to 9 totes each time between the storage area to picking station. So you can see we pick the totes instead of the shelving. So to better describe our technology, we want to bring ACR, autonomous case handling robot, this concept to the market.
Okay, great. As you can see in the slide right now, we are showing the AMR versus forklift and conveyor. I understand that mobile robots have their unique ability to navigate in dynamic environments with a high level of understanding via sensors, blueprints, and AI or 3D vision. But however, in reality, we still see a lot of warehouses that have the tried and tested forklifts and conveyor belts as opposed to the mobile robots that you guys are talking about right now. So why do we trouble ourselves when we have those well in place? Chuan, could you just give me an insight on the advantages of this technology of the mobile robots?
Okay, so I guess what we're seeing on the screen is basically an evolution of technology from manual to mechanized to autonomous. Every system has its pros and cons, and of course, I guess one of the reasons why we're seeing a lot of traditional MHEs as well as conveyor systems in the current operations is because the operations have already invested in it and it still works. So whether or not it's time to change is another question. But in terms of the pros and cons, I would like to start by saying that AMRs are not always used to just replace traditional MHE like forklifts or conveyor systems. They are typically, robotic systems are typically used to address multiple issues such as shrinking workforce, higher cost of labor, and even simply reducing human error or human effort in a specific task. So there are many applications, but if you are, in terms of a quick comparison, AMRs, they have a few advantages over forklifts, for example. So one of them is that they are good at helping relieve the workload of forklift operators for simple and routine tasks. For example, point-to-point material handling. So forklift drivers, they're a little bit more expensive because you have headcount costs, licenses, trainings, and all that. And when you factor all that in, you typically find that you can better assign them tasks that are more complex that a robot simply cannot do, or something of higher value. So they definitely can add value there. But where mobile robots come in and can, add quite a bit of value in an operation is the simple routine tasks that you don't really need a forklift operator to do. The second area is that AMRs allow a level of flexibility that a lot of operations today require. So once you have set up the operating system and the software, when it comes to adding or removing robots, you can simply just get in new robots from your service provider and integrate them into the system, and the robots can basically hit the ground running. You don't really have to train because the system is in place. In terms of forklift drivers, you still need at least some hiring, administrative processes, and training. So there's a bit of lead time in that. On the flip side, where AMRs don't do too well is two things. One is speed. So typically for safety reasons, AMRs are limited to about 1.5 to 1.6 meters per second. Forklifts can definitely go faster. So you have that disadvantage. And also the other thing is, if your warehouse requires a lot of turns by the AMR or the forklift, then the AMR may lose out because AMRs have to stop, turn on the spot, and then move off. So if you compare that along the route, every turn requires an additional few seconds, where forklifts can simply just move on the turn. So you don't have that additional time. Coming to conveyors, conveyors are great. They've been around for years. They are staple, especially if you have a very fixed operation and a high throughput. However, they are rigid, they're not flexible. So if you want to make changes to your conveyor system, it's going to take a lot of cost and infrastructure, and you need to redesign the whole thing. So where I guess conveyors do well is really if you don't expect a lot of changes to your operations and it meets your operations for the high throughput, then that's great. But if you're expecting your operations to change maybe every 3 to 5 years, or at least the design, the layout, then you need that level of flexibility that AMRs can provide.
Fantastic. For those who just joined, let me just say that you can ask any question to our panelists. They are experts in mobile robots, either through chat, which is a functionality here in Zoom, or menti.com, where you can enter your questions. I'm sure that you have other questions. I really want to put that in place or give a perspective of those traditional MHEs, conveyors versus the mobile robots, because I've always been interested. I've read a lot of things of the advantages of those mobile robots, and yet in reality I see a different picture. Now I hear you, Chuan, that you are saying that it's worth transitioning from manual operations to using mobile robots, but what factors should we consider if we want to implement it in the operations, especially for those who have joined us today? They are our customers and they are potentially looking at this type of technology to reach efficiency. Julian, would you like to answer that for us, please?
Sure. I think first of all, and this probably sounds pretty obvious, is does your manual process make sense, right? Because in the past we have often been asked to bring in autonomous mobile robots or AGVs for processes which were not even perfect when carried out manually, right? So it doesn't really make sense usually to automate a process which still can be optimized from manual perspective. And I think once you are at that point where you feel that you already get the max out of it, and you would really like to move forward with automation, we always recommend to start slowly and not with a large fleet of robots if possible, right? Because what you will see and what you will find is that this is a very new technology, and not only new to you, but also new to the employees, right? And the most important point, and also really success criteria for bringing in mobile robots, is how your human operators, your co-workers operate and work with it, right? And this you can only figure out by bringing them into the operations, starting when testing those, but then also see how this interaction works, and also how you want to design this human machine interface, right? And I think as soon as you gathered more experience over there, you can slowly but surely start to ramp up your operations and bringing more robots. So I think that's a very important point. Other than that, robotics, AMRs, AGVs are not always the answer. Sometimes it makes more sense to go more into the use case that you aim to automate and see what might be an appropriate technology to help you to automate that or to relieve your people. And not always autonomous mobile robots might be the answer here. But yeah, we are here to support you with that. So if you have any questions, which technology might be the right one, we are very happy to engage with you after that call to help you with that.
Yeah, fantastic, Julian. You've just given us an overall perspective in terms of the technical consideration. Now, let me bounce to you, Chuan, again, the question in terms of, is there anything specific that you've seen in the Asia Pacific region in terms of consideration of implementing mobile robots?
I think Julian covered a good amount of detail already. And for Asia Pacific, maybe I'll just speak a little bit more towards the developing nations, Australia, Singapore, Japan. Typically, you find good quality warehouses or operations, and also maybe for a little bit more to the developing side. It doesn't mean that if labor cost is cheap, you cannot consider mobile robots. You just need to make the business case work. One, I believe, like Julian mentioned, is the human factor that you need to consider, especially in developing nations. You can assume that the people or your staff may not be as well exposed to robotics as developed nations or where the metropolitan cities are. So there may be a certain fear in working beside or with robots. So if you're going to implement a system, you need to make sure that your people are at least comfortable, or you need to be able to train them to be confident to work beside and with robots. The second part to that is also the requirement for skilled labor to operate the day-to-day system. So of course you have a service provider that will do maintenance and all the hard troubleshooting, but on the day-to-day operations, you still need someone who is capable to run, at least start and run and do minor troubleshooting. And this you need to consider whether or not you can find the right person or the right type of skills in your area, especially assuming it's a more remote area. The second key factor for me is infrastructure. So one thing is connectivity. Mobile robots communicate with the operating system through the wireless or the local network, whichever it may be. And if your network is not stable, you're going to have a very inefficient robotic system. So that's not what you want. You just need to make sure that your network is stable and consistent. Another thing that people tend to overlook is the quality of the floor. So I've been to warehouses in some countries where the floor is broken. You have cheap concrete lying everywhere. These are not optimal for mobile robots. You need a good quality floor, basically flat and not, with minimal or pretty much no potholes. And lastly, I believe you need to also consider if you have space for the AMRs, for example, the charging area. You need to dedicate amount of space for them, maybe beside your existing MHE charging areas and things, but you need to consider whether you have space for that. And the third key thing to me, and I believe Julian has also mentioned, is the business case. So like he mentioned, it's not every situation allows for AMRs to be deployed. Sometimes, keeping to MHE or manual labor makes more sense. So you need to work your business case. But for me, my suggestion is not only to factor in the upfront cost, but also the soft factors like hiring, human resource, volume growth, even expected volume growth, as well as your efficiencies that you can gain from deploying robots. So while cost is a big factor, there are a lot of other things that you need to consider to get a holistic picture of the good business case, basically.
Fantastic. All right, that's great. Now, Johnny, in reference to the considerations mentioned by Chuan and Julian, are you able to actually fulfill most of the customer requirements, and how much customization is actually required for each and every client that you have implemented your robotics? What has been the challenge in terms of the hardware and the software aspects? That's a lot of questions in one go, but I'd be happy for you to take your time to answer those. Yeah.
Yeah, but all those are great questions. Well, currently, most of the mobile robot projects still require a certain amount of customization, both on hardware and software. In general, we can fulfill most of the customers' requirements, but sometimes it's still out of the mobile robot manufacturer's capability. Take our ACRs as example. Typically, hardware needs to be customized with different reachable height and different loading weight for the totes, and the different numbers of the trees will be installed on ACRs, etc. So software part also need development to comply with the different operation. So the customization usually require different level of resources, depend on the complexity of the project. So if we are working on many projects simultaneously, the resources can be a potential bottleneck.
I'd just like to inject one more question, Johnny, because in the 2 use cases that you've mentioned earlier, it took you just a month to actually implement that in those fashion apparel warehouse and in the spare parts warehouse. What actually is the initial step that you would do in order to assess whether the Hi Robotics is applicable to the operation?
If you're talking about the resources and about the speed of our implementation process, I think that's because we focus on we really focus on the implementation and also the deployment part. But of course, we will continue work on this kind of speed, because this is compared to any competitions to the market. I think that is still a very good time frame to deliver the project.
Fantastic. Julian, let me bounce that question to you in terms of the implementation that you've done in Europe. What is the usual process that you take in order to assess the technology or whether it's applicable to such an operation?
So usually I would say it all starts with a site visits to really review the operations, to check for those obstacles I just mentioned earlier, right? Is the manual process right? Is there opportunity to bring in AMRs or AGVs? But then obviously, as Sean mentioned, the next step then is usually the business case, where I still would like to add that it doesn't always need to be a very strong positive business case. I think some customers also just want to get started, make their first hands-on experience when it comes to robots. So sometimes we even have a plus minus 0 business case where we then also just deploy 1 or 2 robots, but the people in the warehouse get their hands on this robotics technology, mostly then for point-to-point handling. But for larger cases, obviously then the business case is very important. And then we like to gather as much data as we can on the manual process and throughputs and volumes to be then handled by the robots. And once this is successful, we validate our findings with potential suppliers. And then, as we do also with normal RFIs or RFPs, we now have the comfort to know many of those. So ideally, we contact 3 or more to see which one might be the best fit and brings in the best offer. And then I would say it's a typical project. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I'll get back to you on those questions because I have follow-up ones. But let me just quickly talk to Johnny again. Johnny, since you're a technology provider, any new trends that we should be looking out in the future for mobile robots?
Well, for mobile robots manufacturers, modularize the product design either on hardware or software will be the future to better serve the different projects. So for market demand, with the labor cost increase global-wise and the other related costs or uncertainty, as Julian and Chuan just mentioned, the mobile robot will be getting more attention in near future for sure. And the in-house logistics being stayed manually for decades. But recently, full or semi-warehouse automation starts to become popular. I think the reason is not just that because the continuous effort from the different mobile robot manufacturers, but also the end users are more ready to accept the new concept with more successful use cases being created in the market.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You've mentioned that end users are more ready to accept this new concept, away from a more traditional operation to exploring this new technology. But I'm always a champion of understanding in terms of the dollar value. We've just learned earlier the advantages of mobile robots. Chuan is convincing us that it's worth transitioning. We've seen the state of our technologies addressing the challenges in our operations, but at the end of the day, it always boils down to the dollar value. So is it really worth it, Chuan, to invest or look into this technology?
To be honest, my answer is it depends. But yes, I would suggest looking into it at some point because in the near future, definitely automation is the way to go. But again, think of a business case, think of the future, and I guess with the management, you just need to decide if this is a way for you to go.
Okay, let me check on Julian. Do you share the same point of view as Chuan, or you have a different answer in terms of the investment?
I would also say yes. Obviously, it depends, but generally speaking, yes. I think there are two big points here. The first one is that it strategically makes sense to look into this technology and get ready to be ready when it comes to mass adoption and scaling. And obviously, I think what it is a big driver and always has been for the logistics industry is the decreasing cost. But I think once costs are decreasing, more and more companies want to be ready to pick up this technology. And today already we see big deployments with mobile robots that bringing huge savings. So definitely, if you have the right use case, if you have the right supplier and technology, robots can really bring in tremendous savings. And a great example here is Locus, where we can increase capacities by 150% during peak. And at the same time reduce the headcount that is required to carry out the same productivity, the same amount of order picking, and this can lead to big savings. And the last thing I would like to add is that what we see and what really helps the logistics industry, especially when it comes to our 3PL services, that more and more companies sell their robots as services, right? Which makes it much easier for us to build positive business cases around that, as we just have to buy a service, let's say a robot, and then to sell it, which makes it easier for us instead of buying the entire equipment, which can lead to very high capex, as these technologies, as mentioned earlier, still can be expensive. But I think there are untapped opportunities which can offer really, really big savings when using robots.
Fantastic. Great to know. But I'm still not understanding in terms of the starting investment. Johnny, I'd like to get the figure. How much is the starting investment for such a technology as Hi Robotics?
Normally once the operation is identified as a good match for AMRs or ACRs, the throughput capacity usually can get a dramatic increase with a labor reduction for sure. So, and on top of that, the flexibility of mobile robot can bring down the starting investment to a very affordable level for a POC project. So in this way, it allows the customer to try it firstly with a very small scale, and which makes a significant difference compared to traditional ASRS. Then the POC project can be easily extended to a real full automatic operation. And also, we can make a relocation possible. But if you really want to get a figure, I think because this is just about, not just about the cost of the robot, but this is a project-based quote. So that depends.
Okay. And who do you usually involve in the organization when you discuss this type of projects? Anyone can obviously answer, because for our customers, they need to know who should be interfacing you guys when we are exploring a potential POC or a project for implementation. Anyone?
So if you're...
Yes, Johnny, go ahead.
Yeah. So if you're asking me, I think for the final user or service provider, they always can contact our sales and also maybe our solution department. So that's maybe my answer. Yep.
All right, fantastic. YingChuan, who do you normally talk to when you start exploring such implementation for a POC?
Personally, I go to the country managers first, just to get a sense of where could be a good place to start, because at the end of the day they are in charge of the country. But on the ground, definitely you need to talk to the operations head. You need to talk to IT as well. So operations allows you to understand the flow, the pain points, and then where could you focus on. Like Julian said, you don't necessarily have to start with a total makeover. You can start with a small implementation, 2, 3 robots, one even depending, and then you scale from there. So you start with a small portion, try the technology, understand the pain points, the processes, how it can integrate. That's from operations. From IT, you definitely, like, if again, like Julian said, if you need to integrate your WMS and all, you need to be able to get IT involved to help advise and guide on that. So these are the key, I guess to me, is at least the key two functions you need to talk to for deployments.
Good. Anything else that you wish to add, Julian? Otherwise, there hopefully will be more questions coming in. Yes, Julian? Anything you wish to add?
No, nothing to add. I'm ready for the questions.
Yeah, so feel free to ask any questions that at this point. I'd be very interested to hear also your thoughts or feedback in terms of what you've just heard. I do have one more question that I'd like to inject in this discussion. Have you seen a rise of interest in terms of mobile robot implementation while we are in this COVID-19 crisis? I have to ask that question.
Okay, I guess I can start. Well, to be very honest, a lot of organizations are putting a freeze on investments and capex just because they need to get by this season. It's taken a toll on a lot of companies. Like Thai Airways just filed for bankruptcy, so it's tough. But so at least from my end, in terms of mobile robots, I haven't seen an increased interest in the typical, like um, goods to person or point to point, or things like that. But we have seen we have seen the rise of mobile robots used for disinfecting purposes, using UV or disinfectant spray, typically for the healthcare areas, or like the COVID-19 quarantine areas and things like that. So more to the area, more to combating COVID-19 rather than the typical use cases that we have in logistics.
Perfect. Yes, Julian, do you want to add anything on that one?
Yeah, happy to add. So I think John already summarized it really well. So there actually like two things. The first thing is people always tend to look into, okay, wow, this is a new task, right? Now I need to disinfect and clean more. Can I automate that, right? So this is a totally new field where robotics might play a role. And then the other field is what we just discussed, right? What was out there already before this crisis, which could have been automated to maybe better balance your capacities, or also some of our customers have very high peak operations right now, and others have less. And I think actually for both, robots can play a role, because sometimes it's much easier to have a robotics fleet which you can manage and just maybe switch off, or stop renting it, instead of having a big human workforce you have to manage, and somehow gets harder to work with when you have this team A and team B thing. That's what we have over here in Europe. What I think is important to mention, and John already touched on that, is the cost didn't change, right? So a business case that has been negative, I don't know, half a year ago, most likely still will be negative unless there have been heavy changes with the operations, the key numbers, or other metrics, right? But what I think, and where I see a big push, and not only for autonomous mobile robots, but also for stationary robots, for example, picking robots, is that more operations now see that they are maybe not that ready as they thought they were, right? So more and more companies and customers now approach us and reach out to, let's say, get robot ready, right? So to better know what they can do for the future when this kind of crisis happens again, right? So I think slowly but surely there will be a bigger push, but also what we need to be very sensitive about is that we are now or most of our customers are not in normal operating procedures, right? And then it's really hard to deploy robots in a meaningful way. And I think this is something where most of our customers and operational leads are aware of. However, I think this will pick up again soon, because what we see over here in Europe is that we're coming back to a new normal, right? And I think as soon as this new normal establishes a bit more, and people still remember that there were bottlenecks or there were opportunities where robots could have helped, and we will see more and more traction with these topics, and more momentum when it comes to projects. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. And we'll be on the lookout for those opportunities for those who are listening right now. If you wish to learn more about the mobile robots, or even assess if you can pilot such technology in your operations, you can obviously reach out to Chuan or Julian for any of those assessments. And for those who are interested to know more about Hi Robotics, you can channel it through Chuan, and we will get in touch with Johnny, obviously, on that one. Fantastic timing that we have in here. If you have other questions, feel free to reach out to us or email Chuan and Julian about it. Now, very, very interesting news for everyone, what's upcoming. And you talked about, most organizations are putting innovation as in the back burner because of the survival mode that most companies have. In our upcoming fireside chat on June 10, at the same time, 1 p.m. Singapore, there will be a special edition of this plug-in session. We will have the head of innovation from DHL and the senior VP of marketing and sales for DGF APAC. And we'll also have a very special guest from Forrester Research. We'll talk about the role of innovation, its key role in times of crisis and post-COVID. So watch out for that. Also, in addition, and we're really looking forward as well to the upcoming trend report on the next generation wireless. This will be launched in June. This is a segue to what is upcoming and what's advancing in the area of IoT. So we really look forward to this upcoming report, and we'll also have a webinar or a trend talk on this one. And for those who just dialed in or plugged into this session, we will also continue to engage with you virtually. Apart from this session, you can contact us to set up virtual sessions for brainstorming, creative problem solving, and even supply chain mapping. And we can also introduce you to the different innovation topics that we have. You can contact innovation managers such as Chuan or Julian or me to have those deep dive sessions. And so keep talking to us at APIC or Asia Pacific Innovation Center, and let us help you with those opportunities. Obviously, your feedback is very important to us. So please feel free to type in your feedback at menti.com with the code 460625. And we appreciate your presence in today's session, and we hope to see you again in the next special edition of our Trend Talk. Thank you very much, Chuan, Johnny, and Julian, for giving us information and insights on the mobile robots for today. And we look forward to hearing from you as well, any other opportunities that you will be exploring in the future together with our customers. So for this point, we can wrap up the session. And thank you very much again for joining and tuning in. Until next time for the next special edition. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.